Part 2, The Golden Age Arc. By 2005, GameStop had made a name for itself. The name GameStop. Now, it was ready to take the world by storm. Starting in 2006 and blazing well into the next 5 years, GameStop was an unstoppable juggernaut on a non-stop climb. Revenues were exploding. And they kept on exploding. Now, what brilliant minds at GameStop HQ were responsible for this growth? Well, nobody. The goddamn Wii was responsible. The Wii was selling like hotcakes year over year over year. Does that simile still work today? Do people buy that many hotcakes? No, the Wii was selling like meth. You want it, I want it, your grandma wants it, we're all just covered in sores. Well, every higher up at GameStop was patting themselves on the back and embezzling actual millions. The Wii was the golden goose doing the actual heavy lifting. The DS was a close second and almost as hot, and the PS3 was doing okay.
$599 US.
Yeesh. But the Wii was the spark that lit the fire. It was already a hot item for any retailer, but here it was like a shot of Panther adrenaline straight into the groin of GameStop's business model. Now, I am not a trained economical mentalist, but I can turn this business nonsense into some proper infotainment for you. Remember what I said about low profit margins? Well, new games at a place like GameStop or Walmart or Burlington Coat Factory costs those companies around $50 to buy from publishers, but then have to sell for $60 MSRP due to distribution agreements. That's 10-ish bucks profit if the game sells, and 0 profit if it ends up sitting on a shelf and the store has to slash the price to get rid of it. Lots of video games are duds, so that can destroy profits quickly and even sink a company. Now, with a guaranteed mega hit like the Wii, all of the shops carrying it were basically selling through their whole Wii-related inventory right away. That alone would be great, because the Wii is now a lossless category with steady profit. But there was an upper limit cap on what any of these stores could earn. Wii stuff was in low supply, with small weekly shipments that would sell out rapidly, if not instantly. For any shops carrying new Nintendo merchandise, the absolute best revenue they could ever pull in was only whatever Nintendo could ship to them. But GameStop had an advantage that Target and Circle K did not. When GameStop took in used games, they could give somebody 10 to 15 bucks, then resell it for 45 or as high as 55 for Sony and Microsoft systems. That's over $30 in profit per game. Profit margins of up to 75% instead of the less than 25% that the new games were giving them. Used games were completely gravy for the company, and they were a supply that the big box stores who only sold brand new merchandise did not have access to. The demand for Wii stuff was bigger than the supply, so even used stuff could be guaranteed to sell fast, usually the same day. With the Wii's popularity and limited supply, the GameStop Circle of Life became a potentially infinite money engine. The GameStop cash machine only needed 3 ingredients for fuel: margins, demand, and supply. Margins were locked in, and they were huge. Demand was also locked in, and it was massive. The supply of used Wii merchandise was the only thing that could possibly limit GameStop's infinite money extravaganza. Since every piece of used Wii junk was guaranteed to sell, and sell for plenty of profit, they could only bring in money as fast as they were bringing in trade-ins. If you enjoy science, or if you hate it but still did your homework, you'd recognize this as a rate-limiting factor. The speed of profit was only as fast as the speed of trades. So, the single biggest incentive for the GameStop Corporation was then, and is now, simply to bring in as many traded items for the new consoles as quickly as possible. So, now wait then. What incentive did customers have to trade in their hot Wii and DS stuff, especially right around Christmas? Well, not much incentive. But there was plenty of incentive for shoplifters and home invaders to grab untraceable video game loot and bring it to a place that doesn't ask questions. And not asking questions was the axle that kept the Circle of Life spinning. That was the golden rule behind GameStop's golden goose. Take in everything and question nothing. There were no geniuses guiding GameStop through its miraculous, recession-proof golden age. Just a bunch of blind squirrels that had finally tripped over a nut. This is where the so-called Circle of Life returns to its ugly roots as a masquerading pawn shop. GameStop wanted to keep operating like a wholesome electronics toy store without any paperwork or oversight slowing down their totally legitimate trade-ins. Registering as a legitimate pawnbroker would require massive amounts of information to be collected and checked for trades, and necessitate building a relationship with law enforcement to maintain standards and report suspicions, and GameStop no like that. GameStop wanted to be a toy shop where people could sell dubious goods in cashless exchanges for other goods, and those dubious goods could be sold to other people for actual cash without a paper trail, and wait, that's just fencing and laundering. Certainly GameStop sold massive amounts of new items, but they made no actual money from them. Pre-owned was what was making them rich. If they got picky, that gravy train would slow down. If they followed too many rules or acted on any suspicions, the law would come to inspect the gravy train. The gravy train had to keep moving. The gravy must flow. Now let's stop and put a pin in our timeline here, because 2006, the big year of the Wii and the PS3, and the only E3 I ever got to go to, well, 2006 was the year I joined the GameStop family. And no, I don't mean family in the creepy mutant hills have eyes kind of way. I mean it in more the creepy Charles Manson cannibal cult sort of way. I was a teenager and I didn't know better. But some questionable experiences brought me face to face with GameStop's unwritten rules, and the threats they used to enforce those rules. For 8 employees in Tennessee, the biggest hazard came from actually doing what they were told.